All right, everyone, welcome. Happy Tuesday. We made it. I hope everyone's doing okay. Hope everyone had a great Labor Day weekend, if that was your thing. Mine was okay, I think. Right? I got one more episode out of Warhammer 40k Battle Sector. We didn't do anything crazy. Oh, we saw some friends at a park, and we said hi to them and played a quick card game. So that was kind of nice. We don't get to see them very often. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I have new glasses. They're trying them out. I've got two pairs. One was supposed to be my computer glasses because I'm on them all day with the blue anti-blue thing on there. But this is the daily one, which works on everything. And my left eye isn't quite right, so I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Other than that, not a whole lot is going on. How about you guys? What's going on with you guys out there in Twitch land or Facebook land or wherever I'm streaming to? Anything going on? Anything at all? Now, I'm not gonna actually read these. I don't think, just as kind of just so you guys know what's going on here with the Texas and the abortion whistleblower site. Some TikTokers flooded it with fake reports, so that was cool. They're doing that to try and take it offline, which was awesome. So there's a bunch here talking about that. I'll go ahead and throw that in here just so you guys have it in case you want to take a look at it. There's that. So that is cool. Very cool. Solidarity. And then over here, the Texas whistleblower website used for snitching on abortions shut down. So the website, or the ISP that was hosting them, said no to that, and they gave them 24 hours to shut down. Who was it? Yeah, GoDaddy. That's right. GoDaddy said, yeah, 24 hours, das Boot. So they'll probably go somewhere else that's conservative, perhaps over to where Parler is, because that's a whole conservative web host sort of a thing over there. Maybe they'll go over there. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, there you go. So that's the thing. So it's down for now. Seems like it's gonna be down for now, but it'll probably pop back up again because Texas. All right. Any questions, comments on that? Then we'll get into some more interesting stuff. Got a lot of tech stuff to go over today. This one I find interesting. I read through some of it. It has some interesting points there going to it. All right, we'll get started. This is from Interesting Engineering. Why we need to keep going to space and shouldn't fix Earth first. There are many reasons why we need to keep going to space, not the least of which have to do with saving Earth. Now, I think what we'll find is this is probably going to echo. That's not what I wanted. Oh, what I wanted. Neil deGrasse Tyson's speech, and this is in my Interstellar New Deal. I think it's going to echo very much a lot of what he said in here, and this is a great speech. If you have not watched it, please watch this amazing speech. All right, here we go. Shouldn't we fix Earth first? This question is like a modified version of Godwin's Law. One need only raise the subject of space exploration and humanity becoming a multiplanetary species in the near future, and someone is sure to ask before long. In fact, it's about as popular as how can we we can send astronauts to the moon, but we can't do whatever here. It's not an unfair argument, and it certainly does seem well-intentioned. After all, why spend billions on various enterprises when poverty, hunger, homelessness, war, refugee crises, social injustice, and climate change are all around us? Wouldn't that money be better spent addressing these problems here at home? But therein lies the problem. Whether it's a matter of resources, priorities, or where we should focus our efforts, the assumption is that space-related activities take away from life here on Earth. But in truth, the advent of spaceflight and space-related research and development has benefited humanity in innumerable ways. In terms of technological applications, in terms of scientific advancement, in terms of medicine and healthcare, in terms of knowledge and inspiration, going to space has allowed us to grow as a species. It has taught us to appreciate what we have and what we could become, and has allowed us to do things previous generations could only dream of. How long is this? Let's take a look. 2 minutes.
William Bradford, speaking in 1630 of the founding of the Plymouth Bay Colony, said that all great and honorable actions are accompanied with great difficulty, and both must be enterprised and overcome with answerable courage. If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. The exploration of space will go ahead. Whether we join in it or not, we mean to be a part of it. We mean to lead it. For the eyes of the world now look into space, to the moon, and to the planets beyond. Our leadership in science and industry, our hopes for peace and security, our obligations to ourselves as well as others, all require us to make this effort, to solve these mysteries, to solve them for the good of all men. There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in outer space as yet. Its hazards are hostile to us all. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
There you go. So 1969, that's from Kennedy. All right, so keep going here. A time-honored issue, the argument that going to space and dealing with problems at home is mutually exclusive is an enduring one. In fact, one can find examples of this criticism going all the way back to the dawn of the space age. For those who grew up during the space race, the speech delivered by President John F. Kennedy at Rice University in 1962 is sure to be familiar. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one we are willing to accept, and one we are willing to postpone, and one we intend to win. These rousing words were fondly remembered when, just 7 years later, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to ever set foot on another celestial body. There, too, famous words were spoken that became an instant source of inspiration. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And let's not forget the words that appear on the lunar plaque, which was mounted on the ladders of every Apollo lunar module. Here, men from the planet Earth first set upon the moon, July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind. These words still reside at the Apollo landing site in the Sea of Tranquility. But would it surprise you to know that there was actually considerable opposition to the Apollo program despite these accomplishments? According to Roger D. Launius, who served as NASA's chief historian between 1990 and 2002 and was the associate director of the National Air and Space Museum until 2017, the majority of Americans did not support going to the moon. As he wrote in a 2003 essay titled Public Opinion Polls and Perceptions of U.S. Human Spaceflight. Many people believe that Project Apollo was popular probably because it garnered significant media attention, but the polls do not support a contention that Americans embrace the lunar landing mission. Consistently throughout the 1960s, the majority of Americans did not believe Apollo was worth the cost, with one exception to this poll taken at the time of the Apollo 11 lunar landing in July 1969. And consistently throughout the decade, 45 to 60% of Americans believe that the government was spending too much on space, indicative of a lack of commitment to the space flight agenda. Much of the opposition was motivated by the social upheaval taking place in the U.S. during the 1960s. At a time when the civil rights movement was fighting against segregation, many African Americans were struggling at the margins of society. Many saw the Apollo program as a glaring example of the federal government's misplaced priorities. Perhaps even a way of distracting from the civil rights movement, right? And like they were talking earlier, right? If you can spend money on this, we can spend money to deal with inequality and that sort of a thing, right? I guess I won't go through this one. For example, in an editorial in the Los Angeles Sentinel, Brooker Griffin wrote, "It would appear that the fathers of our nation would allow a few thousand hungry people to die for the lack of a few $1,000s. Word, man, how you doing? Welcome. We're talking about either going to space or fixing Earth. It's an interesting article. How you doing today? I got new glasses too. Trying them out. Things are clear. Strangely clear. Also went over TikTokers were flooding the abortion whistleblower website with false reports, and then they're getting taken down. The whistleblower website is getting taken down from GoDaddy at least. It'll most likely pop up somewhere else because, Texas. And then we're reading this one on space exploration or saving the planet. All right, while we're waiting, I'll keep reading here. It would appear that the fathers of our nation would allow a few thousand hungry people to die for the lack of a few $1,000s, while they would contaminate the moon and its sterility for the sake of progress, and spend billions of dollars in the process while people are hungry, ill-clothed, poorly educated, if at all. Yeah, so I understand this at all, and my policies are all about fixing this garbage here. But definite concerns there. In 1971, 200 African Americans marched on Cape Canaveral to protest during the Apollo 14 launch. Hosea Williams, a leader of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, spoke with a reporter from Rome News Tribune, saying, "We are not protesting America's achievements in outer space. We are protesting our country's inability to choose human priorities." Okay. Musician Gil Scott-Heron also voiced opposition to America's space program with the song Whitey on the Moon. The song ironically lauds the accomplishments of the Apollo astronauts while juxtaposing them with the realities of being a black person living in the 60s America and struggling to get by. Okay, that's fair. And these are valid complaints, and much of if you can spend billions to get into space, we can spend billions, right? Universal healthcare, universal education, universal housing, minimum wage, UBI, federal jobs, right? We can spend the billions to do this as well. And even keep in mind, the even at the height, it was only like 4% of the national spending at most. Yeah, 4% of our national spending got us to the moon and all that sort of stuff. For others, the issue of high spending was the main point of opposition. Somehow the thought of sending astronauts to the moon to collect rocks didn't justify spending billions in taxpayer dollars. While public perception of the Apollo program has improved with time, opposition to committing public funds to spaceflight has not. Now, so here, when we look at this could be alleviated by people learning how the federal fiscal policy works, specifically looking at, of course, modern monetary theory, right? And we can still spend billions on going to space while also spending, trillions on universal healthcare, universal education, all this sort of things. These things are not mutually exclusive. To spend money in one area does not mean you spend less in another area, because that's how money. Fiscal policy works on a national level if you have your own sovereign currency. Now, those countries in the EU don't necessarily have that benefit, but all the other countries which have their own sovereign currency, this is the way it works. But unfortunately, this is not the way our government operates. This is not the way our politicians operate, which is fundamentally why we have this problem. And of course, they do that as a form of control, to control us and to make sure that the money goes to the rich and the corporations and to not benefit we the people. In 2019, to mark the 50th anniversary, In 2019, to mark the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research conducted an opinion poll. When asked if sending astronauts back to the moon was important, only 23% said yes, while 40% said it was not. Of sending crewed missions to Mars, 27% supported the idea, while 38% did not. On its face, the opposition seems well-founded and well-intentioned. But one must wonder why space exploration is the focal point of anger over high spending and problematic priorities. Is it simply because spaceflight is high profile? Is it because the benefits of space exploration are undervalued and are misunderstood? Or a little from column A and a little from column B? Regardless, it is clear that spaceflight suffers from an image problem. As famous science fiction writer Robert A. Heinlein once expressed, in one respect, NASA has fallen flat on its face. Its publicity is terrible and has been right along. With that in mind, a careful review of arguments against going to space appears to be in order. Do I want to do this? Yeah, we'll skip over that one. Ah, there you are. September 7, 2011, I already have 8. It was 10 years since the plane crash of Lokomotiv Yaroslavl hockey team. Oh, as a huge hockey fan, it's hard to me. It feels like it was yesterday, but already 10 years. A huge loss of 44 people out of 45 died. Only the flight engineer survived. They were flying to Minsk for the game. Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry for your loss and all that. Yeah, that is too bad. That is way too bad. Any sort of course, loss of life is horrible. And then if it's someone that you have a connection to, that makes it makes it even more painful. I'm sorry for your pain. You said they were hockey team. Okay, where were they out of? What city? I'm sorry, Yaroslavl, I'm assuming. It's been a while since I've watched any sports. The only thing I've actually really watched is American football, the Green Bay Packers, and my antenna thing doesn't work, and I haven't been able to find a place online where I could watch them, unfortunately. It hasn't been that big of a priority for me to actually, go and try and figure it out. But it'd be nice to see some games this year. Last year, or not last year, the year before, I had gone to a few bars just to, see a little bit of the game when it was playing. But yeah, that's not happening now because of COVID and all that. I do kind of miss it. Miss watching it. After people began to build theories that the plane could not raise the altitude due to the fact that Medvedev's plane, at the time the president of the Russian Federation, was standing next to it, but I don't like rumors. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Yeah, after a massive tragedy like that, there's definitely going to be conspiracies and thoughts about, who, what, where, and why. Were they, killed for competition or for, other things, or was it just this horrible, horrible tragedy? People are always going to be asking those questions, and because we want answers, and we try and create, answers ourselves to help make us feel better, or at least, to help deal with the anger and the loss and the sadness that we feel. Yeah, that's too bad. It is too bad. Crazy. All right. Well, I hope the rest of your week goes better and that you're, they're from, okay, Yaroslavl. After that, teams always fly new planes. Okay. Where is why don't I just look it up instead of just asking? Yaroslavl. Let's find out where this is from. You said this is in This in Belarus? Just in Russia. Oh, there it is. Oh, it's Russia. Okay. Okay, so it's over here. Okay. Moscow, it's a bit north of Moscow. All right. Yeah, I bet they fly new planes. It's good money. Well, at least here in the US it is. It's good money for these sports teams. So yeah, it's definitely worth the investment to keep them alive. So fly new planes and all that. Yeah, I bet. Wow. Okay, well, yeah, I hope the rest of your week goes better. I'll give you some hugs here for that. Yeah, take it easy. Oh, what did I do? What did I do? There we go. All right. We'll keep going here. Shouldn't we fix Earth first? That's certainly a fair question and makes a good point. We have to do more to address the myriad of problems we face here on Earth, but why is it assumed that going to space steals focus from them, or that it's an either-or situation? It's not like saying we should fix the economy first and then worry about the environment. Where is it written that we can't do both? Okay, well, technically, it's the way it's not so much written as it is. This is the way that the government operates. And we look at like the bird rule. Oh, what is it? There's some rules here that stupid US government has that, like balancing the budget and that stupid bullshit. Bird. Is that in here? Beautiful, not big city. I like cities like that. My dad worked there as a builder of their hockey arena. Oh, so you even have even more of a connection to them. Oh, wow. Well, that's neat to have been a part of that. That makes the loss even worse. Sorry. Okay, so that must be over here in economic. There we go. There we go. So yeah, so here in the United States, we've got some stupid shit like this. The bird rule, the pay-go rule, and the debt ceiling. I need to actually say what these are. I think the pay-go rule means if you're going to spend it, you have to have taxes to offset it. Bird rule means if you go by something like, if you go through reconciliation, it has to be paid for with taxes, and the debt ceiling is just stupid. So there are rules like this that are not an intrinsic part of the way the economy works, but are self-inflicted by Congress itself to make things more difficult for themselves and for taxes, right? Because when we talk about how federal fiscal policy works, it's not you tax and then you spend, because taxes on the federal level don't pay for anything. They just go into a black hole and they never come out. The way money works is Congress writes a bill. The bank accounts are just magically, the money is just theirs. They add the zeros and then Congress spends. So to point out here, it is written into the way that our system actually works, the way it has been forced to work by the people within Congress. Right, balancing the budget and all that sort of stuff. That's stupid shit. And that's kind of what brings this about. And of course, the fact that, like they talk about here, that we have poverty, especially amongst, people of color. Yeah. So I definitely get that. And honestly, you could get rid of this whole question, of course, by actually operating our economy the way it actually operates. By getting rid of the bird rule, getting rid of the debt ceiling, getting rid of pay-go, and actually having our politicians not be corrupt, understand how federal fiscal policy works, and then pass a bill, and then go to space, and homelessness, and nationalize the healthcare, and do all those sorts of things. But they're not going to do that because people in Congress aren't there to actually solve problems. They're there to serve their corporations and their rich donors' bank accounts. More importantly, there's an inherent and rather obvious assumption that space exploration doesn't benefit people here on Earth. This assumption is pervasive, which is why in 1976 NASA decided to create a publication that shared with the public all of the commercial and industrial applications resulting from their research. Now this is pretty cool. Everything to steal your money. Exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's what they get paid for. And it's not so much, on the federal level, they're not really stealing our money. I mean, to take it for themselves, because again, tax money on the federal level doesn't go anywhere. It just gets burned or just goes into a black hole. It's more about making sure the rich have their high level of inequality so that they're much more powerful than us, so they can control the system. A suffering, populace is one that can't stand up. It's much more difficult for a populace that's debt laden. He's got wage slavery, debt slavery, right? And doesn't have access to health care and sick time. It's much harder for them to organize and to basically eat the rich when they're struggling all the time. Motherfuckers. Has made available to the public through the NASA Technology Transfer Program. Okay, that's cool. 1979, in a bid to raise awareness about the spin-offs, Heinlein delivered a speech during a series of joint hearings before Congress. In the speech, he explained why the name spin-off was chosen and how NASA-funded research has benefited countless people who just didn't know it. Spin-offs is a fancy way of saying serendipitous results, which simply means look for one thing and find something else. This happens all the time in science, particularly in pure research. thing that NASA has failed to do with this matter of the spin-offs, the serendipitous results, is to make the hookup so that people know about it. In fact, the most ironical thing I know of about our space program is that there are thousands of people alive today who would be dead if were not for the spin-offs from the space program, and who have not the slightest idea that such is the case, and they complain about all that money being spent on silly stunts. And often they make that complaint by long distance with a satellite bounce, right? Heinlein went on to outline 4 important technologies that were made possible thanks to NASA-funded research computer-assisted tomography, CAT scans, right? Image enhancement technology, catheters, and Doppler ultrasound stethoscope. These technologies, Heinlein explained, were what allowed him to undergo the vascular bypass operation a year before that saved his life. So CAT scans, image enhancement technology, catheters, and Doppler ultrasound stethoscope. Okay. In fact, NASA-funded research has led to more than 2,000 spin-offs since 1976 that have had applications for medicine, biotechnology, communications, home appliances, consumer products, robotics, clean energy, heat-resistant materials, and industrial processes. And one of those spin-offs is actually the ballpoint pen that was created by... Wasn't that? That was created by... Yeah. They spent like $1 million creating a ballpoint pen so they could write in space. Is this the thing here? That's Michael Collins, okay. So this isn't directly related. They're interspersing videos here that don't have necessarily anything directly to do with what they're talking about here. Some of the better known examples include solar panels, communication satellites, Earth observation satellites, microwaves, memory foam, freeze-dried food, firefighting equipment, thermal blankets, dustbusters, cochlear implants, those are your ears, active pixel image sensors, air filtration systems, water filtration systems, and many, many more. For a full rundown on how NASA research, what is it here? Yep, spinoff. How NASA research has led to tangible benefits possibly in your area, check out the Spinoff website here. It steals focus. Another common argument is that space exploration diverts not just resources, but expertise and attention away from problems here at home. For some reason, it is assumed that going to space makes us appreciate Earth less, where in truth, there are numerous examples of how it encourages us to appreciate Earth more. Yeah, and that's... Yeah, Neil... I'll go ahead and share this again here. Neil deGrasse Tyson's video really talks about that. If you've not watched his talk here from 2012, please go ahead and watch this. It's very much talks about something similar to what we're talking about in this amazing article. This is perfectly illustrated by the overview effect, which refers to the shift in consciousness that comes with seeing the Earth from space. Noted author and philosopher Frank White coined this term to describe the experience every astronaut in the history of spaceflight has reported during their time in space and or upon their return to Earth. Astronaut Michael Collins described this experience when talking about piloting the Apollo 11 command module. The thing that really surprised me was that Earth, projected an air of fragility. And why, I don't know. I don't know to this day. I had a feeling it's tiny, it's shiny, it's beautiful, it's home, and it's fragile. Same feeling has been described by noted astronauts and cosmonauts from all over the world, including Sally Ride, Scott Kelly, Chris Hadfield, Anne McClain, Mike Massimino, Tom Jones, Yuri Gagarin, the first man to ever go to space. Upon returning to Earth, Gagarin, there we go, Gagarin, let's pronounce it a little better. Gagarin related how the most profound part of the mission was not looking into the depths of space, but upon planet Earth. Circling the Earth in my orbital spaceship, I marveled at the beauty of our planet, he said. People of the world, let us safeguard and enhance this beauty and not destroy it. Also consider the Gaia hypothesis, the scientific theory that posits that the Earth is a single interdependent system where every organism, feedback loop, and chemical cycle work together to maintain conditions that are favorable to life. The hypothesis owes its existence to NASA, a NASA scientist Dr. James E. Lovelock and biologist Lynn Margulis. This is really just taking kind of systems theory and applying it to the Earth as a whole closed system. Yep, Lovelock's inspiration came from his work with NASA, which consisted of developing scientific instruments that could model the atmosphere and climates of Mars and other planets. In comparing the environment of other planets to Earth, they realized how complex and precious Earth's environment is. And then here's a video of him talking about that specifically. In addition to the climatological research conducted by NASA since the 1960s, is what led scientists to conclude that humanity is having a severe impact on the environment. For instance, Earth observation satellites using the very instruments Lovelock designed were responsible for the discovery of ozone depletion caused by CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons. These same satellites in climate models led scientists to realize that the growing consumption of fossil fuels and the resulting carbon emissions led to a greenhouse effect. Since then, NASA, Earth Science Division, and its Earth Science Initiative have provided regular updates on the effect of climate change and helped support calls for action. And with we've known about climate change, or the effect of fossil fuels and carbon dioxide and stuff like that on the environment for over 100 years, since the 1830s, if I remember correctly. Money better spent on... Here's a rather popular variant, where it's argued that the billions spent on spaceflight would be better spent alleviating poverty and other problems here at home. On its face, it certainly seems like a valid point. We could always use more money combating want, scarcity, poverty, and misery. It's outrageous how common and persistent these things are. It begins to show cracks the moment you dig into or examine from other angles. Once again, why is it assumed that money not directed towards spaceflight would otherwise be spent on economic, social, and environmental problems? And if all space programs today were shelved, are we really to believe that money saved would be put towards humanitarian causes? Well, I mean, if we discount the corruption in the system, then yes, that would be the case, at least the way Congress operates federal fiscal policy. But it shouldn't operate that way, as you talked about before with modern monetary theory, right? You pass the bill, the money's there, and you fix things, right? So, and if he's asking if we canceled all the money for space program, would it go towards humanitarian causes? No, of course it would. It would go towards it end up being subsidies for corporations and stuff like that, right? I mean, no good would come of it. At least out of the money we're spending on space program, we're getting a return on investment of some sort. Whereas if it wasn't, that money would be going straight into the 1%'s pockets. So you have a few arguments there. Second, you'd be hard pressed to find an investment with the same amount of returns as space exploration. According to one estimate, every dollar spent during the Apollo era resulted in a $7 to $8 return on investment, thanks to the spin-offs and commercial applications that resulted. Yep, there you go. Today, that ROI is climbed to $40 for every dollar spent. Shop around, you can't beat that. Yeah, so that is definitely an important one to take into consideration, right? That the return on investment from the technology that we get, from the research and technology we get from that is fairly huge. And then, like you talked about earlier, there is a sort of a cultural return on investment from the, what do they call it here? The seeing Earth from space. The overview effect, right? There's a cultural shift in there from, seeing Earth from space. There's a return on investment on that as well, on our culture. And that's what Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about a lot in his video, so please do watch it. Third, if we're talking about money better spent elsewhere, why are we singling out space exploration, which costs less and comes with far more payoffs than other expenditures? In truth, there's plenty of examples of wasteful spending that yield comparatively little or nothing by comparison. For example, according to Centers for Disease Control, the healthcare costs and loss of productivity caused by cigarettes account for $300 billion a year. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, in 2015, the world's richest nation spent $21 billion on healthcare and lost 1.2 billion workdays due to illness caused by air pollution. Yep, and we've had some articles on that. Environmental pollution kills 8.7 million people a year. If you combine, okay, so there's that. Then another almost 20 million people die every year just due to the harms of capitalism, especially in second and third world countries too. So that's 30 million people die a year due to capitalism. By 2060, that's projected to increase to 3.7 billion lost workdays, which will result in a global loss of 2.6 trillion in gross domestic product annually. Even worse than that is the fact that an estimated 6 to 9 million people are likely to die annually between now and then because of worsening air quality associated with urban growth. Right, we've covered that. If you want the article on that, you can find that in my Discord. I talk about it there. Actually, it's in my policies as well, right? Yeah, it's in my policies too. I'll go ahead and find that for you. Yeah, here you go. And then if you look, okay, so yep. All right, continue on. Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund, an economic terrorist organization, estimates that the world spends roughly $5 trillion a year subsidizing the oil and coal industry, which constitutes about 85% of all annual global subsidies. Meanwhile, renewable energy sources like solar and wind have become price competitive with oil and coal without the same level of financial assistance. Yes, that's amazing, 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 amazing. There are two ways to look at this. At best, we are spending trillions of dollars to ensure that gas prices remain within a certain threshold for the good of the consumer. At worst, we are financing the very industries driving climate change, and when we need to be transitioning to clean energies, that will actually cost less. Yes, this is exactly spot fucking on right there. Good points. All told, the U.S. government spent a total of around $25.4 billion on the Apollo program over the course of 11 years. Adjusted for inflation, that works out to about $175 billion today, and an average of around $16 billion adjusted dollars per year. Add to that the cost of the Mercury, 1958-63, and the Gemini program, 61-66, and you get an adjusted total of around $179 billion. In terms of the national budget, these expenditures consisted of 0.1% of the nation's GDP in 1958. Yeah, like I said, about 4%, 4.5% in 1966 at its peak, and less than 1% again by 1975. Right now, it's at 0.4%. It's down to a tenth of what it was at its height. Now, compare that to military spending during the same period, especially between 1955 and 1975, when the U.S. became embroiled in the Vietnam War. The expense of deploying American forces in Vietnam cost a total of $168 billion, or $1 trillion today. In addition to that, the draft fell disproportionately on the poor and the working class, who could not afford school deferments. In total, military expenditures during this entire period accounted for 10 to 13% of GDP from 1955 to 1966, and 11 to 17% of GDP from 1967 to 75. Yeah, so you could take all this money and dump this into climate change. I mean, that's basically what my policies do, right? We decrease the United States' global terrorism programs. We decrease the spending on the military by 75%. We shift that over to all this other stuff that we're talking about. That's exactly what we need to be doing. In 2018, the U.S. government allocated a total of $890 billion for the sake of defense spending, which represented a 9 to 21% increase over the previous 10 years. In that same year, the entire world spent an estimated of $72.34 billion on space. What did that get us? NASA's InSight lander reached to Mars. NASA's Parker Solar Probe was launched to study the sun. SpaceX's Falcon Heavy launched for the first time. NASA's Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite TESS began looking for exoplanets. China's Chang'e 4 mission landed on the far side of the moon. Japan's Hayabusa 2 mission arrived on the asteroid Ryugu. NASA's OSIRIS-REx arrived at asteroid Bennu. The Voyager 2 probe reached interstellar space. The ESA JAXA Bepi Colombo mission launched towards Mercury. In summary, if we're going to discuss where money should be spent, perhaps we should do a cost-benefit analysis. Okay. Perhaps a cost-benefit analysis should be conducted first. Yeah, okay, so this is editing problem here. Perhaps a cost-benefit analysis should be conducted first, because once that is complete, we're likely to notice that as a species we spend far more money on far less noble endeavors. True dat, homie. Nothing but billionaires playing in space. Yep. This appears to be a common sentiment these days, which is generally raised in response to big names in the commercial space industry, aka new space, making headlines, e.g. Musk, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, et al. Much like saying that space exploration takes away from Earth, there are many who doubt that new space ventures are anything other than a billionaire's ego trip. At best, the criticisms tend to assert that commercial space is something that will only ever benefit the super rich. At worst, there are those who actually accuse Musk, Bezos, and others of plotting to leave the Earth before climate change or some other cataclysm causes civilization to collapse, abandoning anyone who can't afford to go with them in the process. Granted, space tourism is an industry that only people with a lot of disposable income will be able to afford in the coming years, but the ultimate purpose is to bring the associated costs of going to space down so that more and more people can enjoy it too. In addition, it would be foolish to conflate all commercial space ventures with this one aspect of it. Now for Musk, okay, well, anyhow, at least he's doing something that is productive to space and actually doing stuff, whereas the other two aren't really doing anything at all. Since 2001, Elon Musk has spearheaded the development of reusable rockets and space systems through his company SpaceX with impressive results. Between 1970 and 2000, the average cost of sending payloads into space was about $8,400 per pound or $18,500 per kilogram. Thanks in part to the development of a rocket like the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy, that cost is now $1,235 per pound and $640 per pound. $2,719 and $1,410 per kilogram, respectively. Blue Origin founder Jeff Bezos has also indicated that his long-term aim is to use paid flights with the new Shepard launch vehicle to fund the development of heavy rockets like the new Glenn and the new Armstrong, and the necessary infrastructure for regular trips to space. The ultimate goal, he said, is to ensure humanity's future in space and to ensure that Earth is safeguarded. Now, honestly, so if we, this is what would work a little better. Elon Musk has pretty much got the rocket thing down and all that sort of stuff. Blue Origin should not be doing rockets. Blue Origin should be concentrating on would be mass drivers to send stuff into space, and working on technology for active support so we can get our buildings taller, so we can get a space elevator. So the way it works, you can use the mass driver to launch things into space, and then you could catch that with a skyhook, or just launch it directly into space and then catch it, once it gets there, because you've done the math, and it kind of gets to space and then it slows down because of gravity and all that sort of stuff, right? That's an easy way and a cheaper way to get things into space than it is using a heavy rocket, because not only is the heavy rocket expensive, but it also adds carbon dioxide and stuff like that to air, contributing to climate change. So having Bezos working on a mass driver to get stuff in space would be a huge benefit to the space, to our space, going to space in general. And then, so that's what Bezos could be doing. And then Virgin Galactic could be working on an international body to create an orbital loop. If they really, really wanted to do this for humanity, that's the way it should be done. Right? Bezos working on a launch loop, mass driver launch loop, and the other dude working on an orbital loop. Okay. We're going to build a road to space so that our kids and their kids can build the future. We need to do that. We need to do that to solve our problems here on Earth. This is not about escaping Earth. The whole point is this is the only good planet in the solar system. We sent robotic probes to all of them. This is the only good one. I promise you, and we have to take care of it. Well, then why isn't he spending billions on universal health care? Why isn't he fucking with Amazon? Why isn't he paying a decent minimum wage? Why are his people dying due to heat exhaustion? Why is he in his plants? Why is he union busting, right? These words ring quite hollow due to his sociopathy. Critics of Branson's space-related venture, Virgin Galactic, claimed that suborbital commercial flights will benefit no one but the super rich. With an advertised price tag of $450,000, this is certainly understandable. But as space flights become a common occurrence, prices will drop and accessibility will increase. What guys like Branson have been saying all along. Okay, sure, yes, but how much are they contributing to climate change by doing that? Is that $450,000 being paid to Virgin Galactic somehow being used to offset the carbon dioxide and stuff added to the air to increase and accelerate the rate of climate change? Somehow I think not. Somehow I think not. In the meantime, Branson has created Space for Humanity to allow people other than super rich to fly. Through their sponsored Citizen Astronaut program, this nonprofit will train citizens and leaders to become citizen astronauts, a program that culminates with a ride to space aboard a Virgin Galactic spaceplane. The company has also partnered with Omaze, a fundraising company that partners with charities to launch a giveaway where those who pledge support for Space for Humanity can win free trips with Virgin Galactic. In addition, NASA and other space agencies have a very long history of partnering with commercial entities to develop the tools and equipment they need. At its peak, the Apollo program employed over 400,000 people and required the support of over 20,000 industrial firms. Today, that tradition continues, albeit to a lesser extent. In the past few decades, multiple commercial space companies have partnered with NASA and other space agencies to provide technological, logistical, and launch services to the International Space Station. Many of these same companies are Artemis partners and are currently building the necessary elements that will take astronauts back to the moon for the first time since 1972. Kind of a long article here. There's a second here. But it is a good one. A very good article. A lot of great points. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I will be adding this to my policies right under. I'll add it to this one here. This one here? Yeah, I'll add it right down here. Space Race 2.0. Given the way humanity is poised to make the next great leap into space, it is good to ask questions about budgets, priorities, and what our goals for the future should be. But once a full and fair assessment of spaceflight is considered, it seems pretty clear that the kind of future we want for our children cannot happen without space exploration. During the last space age, the desire to go to space and put a man on the moon resulted in hundreds of technological spin-offs that have benefited countless people here on Earth. It's also led to widespread job creation, particularly in skilled trades. And let's not forget how decades later, the moon landing still manages to inspire and remind us of what we can accomplish. In the age of renewed space exploration that we now find ourselves in, the focus shifted dramatically. Rather than simply getting there or getting there first, the purpose is to create what we need to conduct long-duration missions to locations in deep space. In other words, our goal is to go back to the moon to stay and then use our presence there to reach beyond. Yeah, and the fundamental problem with this, I mean, this is good. The fundamental problem is going to be that it is going to be done through capitalism. So that either like the United States is going to control it or Musk is going to control it, and then there's going to be money involved, and then territoriality and all sorts of other garbage involved with it that's going to poison the whole thing. Instead of being truly an international venture, a global, globalized human adventure, it's going to be about money. For this, space agencies and the commercial space industry are researching spacecraft that can sustain crews for long-duration flights, but also the technology for habitats and life support systems that can ensure astronauts survive any hostile environment for extended periods of time. This means creating closed-loop systems that can provide steady supplies of food, water, and air while producing zero waste. This technology is based entirely on the study of Earth's natural systems, which are themselves part of a massive closed-loop system that is regenerative, waste-free, and has maintained Earth's habitability for billions of years. The technologies and spin-offs that this research will lead to include facilities that can grow plants in hostile environments, water reclamators, air filtration, carbon capture systems, and environmental engineering. Each and every one of these technologies will have endless applications here on Earth, where solutions for sustainable living will also be a matter of survival. Now, if they really want to get heavy into that, they could do like an O'Neill cylinder or something like that, where you've got the closed loop, lots of space, and you work on testing all that stuff out. But of course, that's giant, super expensive. As Dr. Cian Proctor, a geology professor, commercial astronaut, and famous science communicator, would say, solving for space solves for Earth. Dr. Proctor will be in the mission pilot on the upcoming 3-day Inspiration 4 flight, where the first all-civilian flight in history will fly to space aboard a SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule. Well, that'll be cool. Looking to the future, like the Olympic Games, space exploration has always been a great unifier, bringing people and nations together in the spirit of exploitation and discovery. Even during the height of the Cold War, people all around the world were united in celebration as cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin and Valentina Tereshkova became the first man and woman to go to space. On July 20th, 1969, people on both sides of the Iron Curtain celebrated as humans took their first steps on the moon. Decades later, we still remember what was accomplished during those heady days and draw inspiration from it. We're also reaping the benefits of all the commercial, medical, industrial, and scientific breakthroughs it produced, whether we realize it or not. Today, space exploration is no longer a competition between two superpowers, but has broadened to become a much more cooperative enterprise between many state and private actors. If we hope to tackle the growing problem caused by climate change, as well as the enduring problems of poverty, injustice, war, and petty rivalries, we need to come together like never before. Okay, this is true. But as long as we have capitalism, as long as we have nation states, this is never going to be a thing. And the big problem with, many state and private actors doing stuff is so many of them are recreating the wheel, wasting time, wasting energy, wasting resources on doing stuff that has already been done. Like a Falcon Heavy rocket, all that technology and software behind that should be open source, so that these state and private actors don't have to recreate anything, and everything should essentially be shared. I mean, this is the fundamental problem. And enduring problems, poverty, injustice, and war, petty rivalries will never end unless we evolve beyond capitalism. Because it is inherent, visceral to the system. The benefits and knowledge that we stand to reap from going to space to stay will help ensure that by promoting sustainability, cost effectiveness, resource utilization. Having access to the abundant resources of space could also help usher in an age where scarcity, the very basis of wealth and poverty, has been eliminated. Okay, so now this is not going to happen. I mean, it's nice ideologically. It's nice that he put it in here as a feel good, but ultimately it's not going to, because as long as people are rewarded for murdering people as long as the 1% is rewarded for murdering people for fun and profit and destroying the environment, that's always going to be a thing. Right now we don't have real scarcity. We have artificial scarcity, and that artificial scarcity is what makes the 1% rich. They're not willingly going to give that up. Now we could end scarcity, we could end poverty, we could end war, we could end all those things right now, and that's entirely what my policies are all about. That's what stage 3 is. Let me go over there. Part 3, evolving beyond should be poverty, war, and suffering. As Kennedy intimated in his famous speech at Rice University, going to space is and will always be hard, but the payoffs for doing so are monumental, and the sense of accomplishment that comes with it lasts for generations. By putting humans on the moon before the decade was out, the generation of people showed themselves what they were capable of. Since the Apollo era, we've gone even further, establishing space stations in orbit like the Salyuts, Mir, Skylab, and the ISS. We've developed reusable rockets and space planes that have reduced launch costs substantially. We've also sent robotic probes to every corner of the solar system. And a few have even made it to interstellar space. More important than rockets, spacecraft, and various technological spin-offs, the greatest thing to come from the space age was arguably the inspiration it still provides decades later. After all, there's a reason why sayings like shoot for the moon and moonshot, reach for the stars, endure. Okay, really great article. Long, but really, really great. So yeah, this will definitely go into my policies, and I'll be sharing this. This will go on Discord and stuff like that. But again, watch the video that I shared a little bit ago. Neil deGrasse Tyson's keynote speech from 2012. It is amazing. Amazeballs. All right. There's that. Any questions, comments, suggestions on that? As we move forward. Anybody. Nobody. It's all right. Okay. Oh, and this is the spinoff on NASA. I'll go and throw that in here too, so you guys have it. Yeah, space pens, pencils, lots of things. All right, next article. All right, so when is this from? Okay, yeah, this is from just about a week ago. So Solarpunk, if you're not familiar with the genre, I've just in, studying writing and novel writing and stuff like that, I've encountered this. So we've got like cyberpunk, right? And dystopian sorts of science fiction sorts of things, like Hunger Games, Blade Runner, right? Everything is bleak and horrible in the future and that sort of a thing. And Solarpunk is kind of its opposite. It's about a future that is good and sustainable, and we've gotten beyond poverty, war, and suffering into into a much better world, right? So Solarpunk is not about petty aesthetics. It's about the end of capitalism. There you go. And that's pretty much it. You can't have a positive society, one that ends poverty and war and suffering, one that's based off cooperation and sustainability, when you have a socioeconomic system that is antithetical to those values. You can't, like I said, you can't build the world of tomorrow on the infrastructure and socioeconomic systems of yesterday, or the ones that brought you the horrors of today, right? At its core, and despite its appropriation, Solarpunk imagines a radically different societal and economic structure. Imagine a futuristic farm where robots pick oranges off trees and floating wind turbines generate energy. A multi-generational family gathers around for a meal outside to enjoy their locally harvested bounty. The woman tells her daughter, "Our job is to plant seeds so our grandkids get to enjoy the fruit." This imaginary world might be an ad for Greek yogurt company Chobani, but it's also the most mainstream manifestation of Solarpunk, a movement built on visual art and speculative fiction that hopes to build a more sustainable world. Solarpunk took inspiration from cyberpunk and steampunk aesthetics that came before it. Take the lush paradises of Studio Ghibli films with just a few more solar panels. Cyberpunk uses science fiction to explore our anxieties in the rapidly developing technical age, while steampunk is nostalgic for aesthetics and the Industrial Revolution. But unlike these dystopian and mechanical universes, Solarpunk is more optimistic, regenerative vision of the future. I've considered writing in this genre a little bit, but just finding the time is all the stuff I have going on is difficult. I've actually considered kind of doing a 3-part series of like writing just like a family that's struggling right now in today's world, and then writing about a family that is dealing with the transition between today's world of capitalism, and then they're in the middle between the transition between capitalism and a resource-based economy, and then someone who is in a resource-based economy. That's kind of solar punkish, at least in the last part, showing life is good, it can be good, and these are the sorts of things that are going on there. It imagines a world where energy, usually from the sun or wind, can be used without harming our environment, where green roofs and windmills allow humans to live in harmony with nature. On the surface, it might seem like a rosy, perhaps even naive perspective for our moment, when climate change fueled disasters are in the news every other day. But imagining Solarpunk purely as a pleasant aesthetic undermines its inherently radical implications. At its core, and despite its appropriation, Solarpunk imagines an end to the global capitalist system that has resulted in the environmental destruction seen today. Solarpunk is inherently anti-capitalist. One of the things that I often see that spurs people toward this very doomy place is they can't imagine people as anything but destroyers. Adam Flynn, a Solarpunk strategist and futures researcher, told me, but why can't you think of humans as stewards of the ecology and of a human society built on a more symbiotic partnership with nature? Right. Again, like I said before, why can't we do that? Why is it difficult for people to do? Because in our current system creates a socioeconomic system, culture, everything that is antithetical to that very nature. It doesn't reward this potential. It makes it seem impossible because we're still dealing with climate change. Republicans are pro climate change because they're, making it worse. Democrats are making it worse. I mean, Many solarpunks agree that the punk element becomes clear when they go past the movement's visuals and into the nitty-gritty. Solarpunk is radical in that it imagines a society where people and the planet are prioritized over the individual and profit. Of course, utopian visions of the future aren't new, and art and technology have long drawn from nature. Just take an example of Belgian architect Luc Schuiten, whose drawings and buildings often employ biomimicry, where the form and function of organic elements influence design. Okay, let's pop over there real quick. Let us see. Oh, okay, that's interesting. I mean, there's definitely something to learn from there, right? Nature has done things for thousands of years, and there's got to be some level of efficiency to it. The movement gained traction in progressive circles on early 2010s Tumblr, but as its popularity has bloomed over the past 10 years, early solar punks feared capitalist co-option. Flynn calls it fake solar punk urbanism, luxury condos with green roof that price out existing communities and might end up doing more environmental damage. Jay Springett is a consultant strategist for the solarpunks.net, co-administrator along with Flynn. Springett remembers the days when he could easily monitor every post tagged with Solarpunk, but the movement's openness and purposefully porous boundaries raise questions. Is cottagecore Solarpunk? What if the peasant's dress was bought from the fast fashion retailer Shein? Solarpunk is so much more than the images that peoples generally first encounter, said Springett, adding, if you're looking at eco-future image and it doesn't have people in it, then it's not Solarpunk. Okay. The main concern is greenwashing without actually addressing environmental issues, although many Solarpunks saw the Chobani ad as fairly innocuous given that the company sells a health food made with natural ingredients. I don't think Chobani is all that good, actually. I think it's one of the ones you don't want. Okay, this one's not so bad. Okay, not so bad. Not so bad. The main concern is greenwashing without actually addressing... Okay, I read that. It could be co-optation. It could also be the trickle down from the margins into the mainstream, said Andrew Dana Hudson, a speculative fiction writer, sustainability researcher, and author of the forthcoming Our Shared Storm, a novel of 5 climate futures. Oh. But in many ways, I was very surprised at how we went from not having anything like that to having something that was so very clearly matched up to a lot of Solarpunk visions. Jessica Wolf, a Vancouver Island-based concept artist for animation and video games, worked on the ad and often incorporates Solarpunk into her natural landscapes. In 2019, Wolf won the Adam Hawk Solarpunk art competition. Her piece depicts a farmer and his daughter in a world with both wind turbines that also ended up in the Chobani ad, floating above the fields and generations old traditional Norwegian farmhouse with a sod roof. Okay. Oh, this is not what I was expecting. So yeah, these are much too low. These are high altitude wind turbines. I have that in my policies as well. But yeah, you can definitely do these high altitude wind turbines. These need to be much higher to have the wind speeds to sustain these, but this is pretty cool. Let's go and find one. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Well, you already saw it there, but see? So again, it has to be high altitude to sustain something this big up there. These are kite systems. You can have these much closer to the ground, but these are high altitude wind turbines. You have them way the fuck up there, and then you have them like above the clouds, I think it is, and then you got that massive stream of air, and it just continuously generates electricity because of that. Art is a way to connect to people on an emotional level and has a chance to show them a different perspective and one that people can identify with, regardless of your race or gender or nationality, she says. Wolf added that creative projects often reach broader audiences than, say, a scientific paper and are a powerful medium to communicate knowledge, like putting some broccoli in mac and cheese. Adam Flynn highlighted Solarpunk themes in Black Panther, with Wakandans as an Afro-futurist urban landscape featuring no cars. Many Solarpunks see their movement on the precipice of wider influence with a mature pop culture phenomenon as the catalyst. That moment might be here with the recently announced A24 film adaptation of Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower. In the sci-fi classic, a young protagonist builds her own Earthseed religion in an America ravaged by climate crisis and social inequality. There's actually a role-playing game coming out that's Afro-futurist that I did back. I don't remember what it's called. Hold on. I'll go and bring this up for you. I'll share this as well. Into the Motherlands. Here we go. Go ahead and throw that in here. It's an all It's created by it's a whole team of people of color creating it. It's an Afrofuturist role-playing game setting that doesn't have colonialism as a part of it. I think every single base race or species is not white, actually. Afrofuturist. It's really interesting. I backed it. It looks pretty cool. Of course, the practicality of a Solarpunk future beyond the silver screen remains a central priority. Solarpunks point to a range of global initiatives during Solarpunk Action Week, a yearly event for independent and collaborative actions that support community building. Someone turned a British telephone booth into a seed library. Flynn is most inspired by Cooperation Jackson, a network of worker cooperatives in Mississippi aimed at building economic democracy. Springett pointed to Ridgedale Farm, 59 degrees north in Sweden, where Richard Perkins has done the seemingly impossible. Profitable, sustainable farming so close to the Arctic Circle. Well, with everything heating up over there and everything melting. Living in the UK, Springett said, I think the explosion in a small-scale regenerative agriculture, particularly the European instantiation of that, is the most Solarpunk thing that is happening in the real world. It's a sharp contrast to back in 2012 when Adam Flynn was working in advertising and trying to imagine these better futures. In the aftermath of the financial collapse and the threats of climate change becoming more apparent, everyone seemed obsessed with the end of the world. The Mayan apocalypse was imminent, and the Hunger Games and The Walking Dead were leading a trend of dystopian hits. Flynn quickly became a notable contributor to the burgeoning Solarpunk community. Now he and others see it as a solution to rising climate anxiety as wildfires rage, communities flood, and ecosystems around the world drastically change. It's a powerful counter to the apathy many feel when seemingly little can be done on an individual level to fix a warming planet. A post from the Sunrise Movement, or one of AOC's, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's, cool little videos, you see that inside the Solarpunk hashtag, said Springett. I think, yes, this one here. So this video, this is from The Intercept. This is from 2019. This is the video that sold me on the federal jobs guarantee and eventually sold me on the UBI and MMT. This is it's an amazing video. I even have, let me go and pull this up. It's even so powerful for me that, oh my God. That I actually created. Okay, what the hell is it called? Message from the future. Hold on. I created a transcript for it. Such a powerful thing. There we go. So yeah, here on my blog, here's the video, and then here's the entire transcript of everything that she says in there, if you want to read it instead. It's a great video, so definitely do go and watch it. All right. It's expanding and building the larger movement. Solarpunk is just one signal in a much larger media environment or societal shift. But Solarpunk isn't new. Many of its practices are drawn from centuries-old indigenous agriculture and living systems like permaculture or rain collecting. It also pulls from more recent innovations like regenerative agriculture and keyline design, a landscaping technique most effectively used in areas' water supply. In pop culture, a proto-Solarpunk appeared in the Talking Heads 1988 Nothing But Flowers, in which David Byrne croons, "This was a Pizza Hut, now it's covered with daisies." But more hopeful outlooks were limited. It is easier to imagine an end to the world than an end to capitalism, Flynn said, quoting a saying that's been attributed to both literary critic Frederick Jameson and philosopher Slavoj Zizek. Yeah, and actually, I gotta go to my blog here. if you look at, if you want to look at Solarpunk, this my post here talks about how a resource-based economy might be. If you want to look at a Solarpunk sort of futuristic world, I am specifically here writing about how this world might come into being, right? And again, like he says, it's easier to imagine an end to the world than an end to capitalism. And I agree with this wholeheartedly, because on my channel, as you know, if you're regular, right, I'm totally doomer, right? In the next 200 to 300 years, there will be no life left on this planet. And the only way that is not going to happen, as I say in here all the time, is if the United States decides to no longer be the world's global terrorist organization. And they decide, as Buckminster Fuller said, to shift away from weaponry, using all of our money and power and influence and technology for weaponry, and shift it over to livingry. Sustainable energy, ending poverty, war, suffering, you know, all that sort of stuff. And if the United States doesn't do it, we're, as a species, as a globalized civilization, fucked. So I get this. I'm totally on that bandwagon, he said. I have to quote this. I'm gonna go ahead and copy this down, actually. By 2014, Solarpunk had begun to expand to Reddit, Facebook, and other platforms, with Flynn writing Solarpunk notes toward a manifesto. The same week, Tumblr user Miss Olivia Louise published a viral post defining the movement's aesthetic. Okay, I'm gonna have to read some of this stuff because this is pretty cool. Including the landscapes of Japanese artist Teikoku Shonen, aka Imperial Boy. Andrew Dana Hudson, the writer and researcher, came across Flynn's manifesto and decided to explore the political dimensions of Solarpunk, turning a speculative movement into something more tangible. As he wrote, a genre explores ideas through motifs, variations on a theme. A movement provokes change through iterations of strategy and deed. Hudson said he wrote the 2015 essay with the assumption that Hillary Clinton was going to be going to win the next year's presidential election, and the neoliberal hold on the levers of change was going to continue, so we had to create a competitive alternative to capitalism from the margins. Okay, all right. Trump was elected, and that proved to me very quickly that, in fact, no one had their hands on the steering wheel. Well, actually, they did. It's the 1%, right? We have a one-party system, and the 1% are the ones who are steering it. So let me close this down. As America seemed to be moving in the wrong direction, with the Trump administration withdrawing from the Paris Agreement and rolling back environmental protections, Extinction Rebellion and the Sunrise Movement led some of the largest protests of a generation. Their ethos fit into the purposely broad container of Solarpunk, according to Springett. Yeah, and again, like I say about the Paris Agreement, it doesn't fucking mean anything. It's toothless. There's no enforcement. Sure, it's nice to sign a piece of paper and look good doing it, but it's irrelevant to the whole thing, right? However, he turned back like I don't know what the number is, 72 environmental protections. That is problematic, most definitely, because those actually do things. Solarpunk, in a way, you could just call Solarpunk eco-humanism. That's how I identify my policies. They're eco-humanistic, right? Yeah. And that's how I talk about myself as well. I'm an eco-humanist. So very Solarpunkish. Solarpunk is more concerned with delivering the practical things that you can do en route to a better world rather than the gestural things like the Paris Climate Agreement. Springett said. You can't LARP Solarpunk because LARPing Solarpunk is going out and planting a garden. Solarpunk has gained international resonance, most strongly in Brazil, a country whose natural resources was also facing existential threats from a right-wing administration. Still is. We've pretty much lost it. The first recollection of Solarpunk fiction was published in 2012 in Brazil. Ana Rusch is a writer and researcher from Sao Paulo who incorporates Solarpunk into her work. in her novella Telepathy is Other People, the protagonist travels to Chile, where she learns about seed preservation, a significant issue in Brazil where the vast majority of corn is transgenic, meaning it's genetically modified. Yeah, and this you can get into Monsanto and the harms that Monsanto has caused and the pollution of genetically modified seed in with normal seeds, and then how Monsanto fought to destroy seed banks and that sort of a thing, and they caused so many problems, so much devastation, that one fucking company. Rusch also explores these themes in nonfiction work, like a piece about frogs whose croaks used to calm her at night, now gone because of housing development. She's replaced their calls with a tone on her phone. The piece will be published in a book of essays on literature and the Anthropocene. Solarpunk is not naive, she said. We are facing the world we have already, so the challenge is to imagine together, and that's really beautiful. Rusch is one of many bringing broader diversity within Solarpunk, although it's founded largely in non-white and non-Western practices, and believes and is a response to the problems caused by the richest nations. Okay, yep, because of systemic structural racism inherent to capitalism. Because it's the global north, white people, versus the global south, the global north, white people exploiting the global south. Much of the early Solarpunk work began in the US and Europe, but the movement's growth has been accompanied by a more expansive range of voices and backgrounds. Keisha Howard is the founder of Sugar Gamers, an organization encouraging diversity in gaming and beyond, previously working in luxury real estate development. The Chicago native learned about Milan architect Stefano Bori, whose firm is a leader in sustainable and green building. Howard went on to give a TEDx talk on Solarpunk, and sees the potential for Solarpunk video games. Yeah, and when I talk about a resource-based economy, when I talk about the sorts of things that we need here in our current, world, we need games and entertainment which doesn't promote competition, but promotes eco-humanistic values, promotes interdependence, the fact that we are a part of the system and not above and beyond it. And talking about cooperation and sustainability and regenerative everything and that sort of thing. Yeah, most definitely. I have to read a bunch of these articles here. Howard decided to create her own game, Project Whilstleblower, exploring what freedom looks like and what compromises must be made for a Solarpunk future. She believes video games and tabletop role-playing games can bring together a diverse cast of characters to explore solutions to save the planet. But she doesn't sugarcoat the challenge of eliminating plastic or fossil fuels. Yeah, and much of our work as people who support resource-based economies, it's resource. I guess we can sort of think as Solarpunk as a narrative implementation of the values of a resource-based economy. We'd have to rethink systems of capitalism, she said. We would have to rethink hierarchies in themselves, and that is a major conflict that's not necessarily all that utopian. Yeah, and again, we have to get rid of capitalism. We have to get rid of monetary systems and go to a resource-based economy. That's all there is. Because I'll go ahead and share my post on this. I know you guys are fucking sick and tired of hearing it. But this post here talks about why this has to be. We cannot get beyond. We can't get to Solarpunk or resource-based economy until we have a system that makes it a foregone conclusion. Here's a quote right here from the first infographic. How can we create a world based on cooperation and peace between humanity and the environment when the core driver of methods of exchange, capitalism and money, is based on competition, which powerfully rewards the exploitation of humanity in the natural world? So the building of a future for humanity, a globalized human civilization based on peace and sustainability and regenerative agriculture and all these sorts of things, is antithetical to the existence of capitalism and monetary systems. Full stop. While this level of radical change might still be reserved for the pages of fiction, Solarpunk's biggest proof of concept might be in the name itself. Solarpunk began with the sun, and many point to the drastic and unexpected quick drop in the price of solar power in the past decade, making the technology significantly more accessible. A central tenet of Solarpunk is not being afraid of how the world will change and the adaptations that must be made. Jay Springett describes this as the poisonous pill one must swallow when engaging with Solarpunk. It means that there's the decentralization of technology, the decentralization of power. Yeah, again, they're talking about a resource-based economy. These people may not know about it. I bet you a lot in the Solarpunk circles know about the Venus Project and the Zeitgeist movement. I'm a member of some Solarpunk circles. Not member of some Solarpunk groups on Facebook, and that gets brought up a lot. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. You want this? This is a resource-based economy right here. In fact, many Solarpunk solutions are readily available, drawing on traditional and sustainable practices. Writer and artist St. Andrew first learned about Solarpunk on Reddit and created his YouTube channel to explore political and cultural concepts through an easy-to-consume format. He has created videos about why the climate movement is broken and permablitzing, a Solarpunk act of quickly transforming an unused space into fertile ground for plants to be grown and harvested. Okay, this is pretty cool. But a Solarpunk primer is the most popular. Okay, I'm going to read all this stuff. From Trinidad and Tobago, he is particularly interested in how indigenous growing practices and cultures and cultural celebrations fit into Solarpunk, as well as mutual aid and community gardening. He is now working on a short story collection centered around a fictional Solarpunk society in the Caribbean, exploring ideas of regional solidarity and self-sufficiency. I want to provide a vision for a better world for my fellow islanders, he said. I want to boost our representation as diverse Caribbean people in the sci-fi speculative fiction genre. And I want to explore the strengths and weaknesses of a Solarpunk society in the playground of fiction. After about a decade into Solarpunk, Adam Flynn said the stakes are now higher than ever, but it might also finally be its moment to shine. More and more he sees a revolution in values gaining traction with Solarpunk, narratives that feed spirits and give a sense of purpose for the tough work that needs to be done. It does feel like people are very hungry for new ways of finding meaning in their lives, he said. That requires sort of new stories of what can be, and new ways of how to think about ourselves in relationship to the earth. Okay, there you go. As the last few weeks have been, we've gotten through 2 articles. Now we're gonna move on to another one. Well, let's go and see what we have over here. See if there's something here that we want to read. Solarpunk reference guide. Okay, this is going to be too big to read here in the time we have left. Do you know? Okay, this is the game. Take a look at all this. Let's check this out. What is Solarpunk? This one looks pretty good.
Solarpunk, one of my favorite fusions of arts and politics. Solarpunk is everything from a positive imagining of our collective futures to actually creating it. It derives its name from the cyberpunk genre and all the other punks it has spawned. Real quick, there's steampunk, which focuses on the Industrial Revolution and steam-powered tech. It's one of the most popular after cyberpunk. There's dieselpunk, focused on the designs of the interwar period. There's atompunk, focused on atomic power. Steelpunk, focused on late 20th century hardware. Stonepunk, which is Neolithic, and there's even nowpunk, which is set today. Solarpunk has a shining vision of a positive future, grounded in our existing world that emphasizes the need for environmental sustainability, self-governance, and social justice. It's a movement dedicated to human-centric and eco-centric ends. It looks beyond the limitations of capitalism and beyond the current rift between humanity and nature. It's a futurism that focuses on what we should hope for rather than on what we should avoid. Solarpunk recognizes that climate change, the consequences of centuries of damage, aren't averted in the future, yet it still manages to incorporate hope. A future where we've got a lot of work to do, but we're doing better, using technology for more uplifting ends, like seed bombing drones and solar ovens. Solarpunk emphasizes real-world application. It's all about what we do here and now, from DIY projects to larger organization. Solarpunk is also very aesthetic, as I'm sure you've realized. It uses a lot of nature motifs and takes inspiration from Art Nouveau, upcycling, and Asian and African styles and artistic movements. Side note though, let me talk real quick about what isn't Solarpunk. It isn't slapping flowers and trees on concrete buildings or steel skyscrapers with some green on it. That's greenwashing. It has the appearance of sustainability. It's actually really damaging to the environment. A lot of water is used to maintain those quote-unquote green buildings, and they often aren't built with sustainable or durable material. Don't get mad, my guy. In the short time it has been conceived of, Solarpunk has found a place in contemporary media. It's a literary genre after all, but it has been retroactively assigned to other things since the term was really popularized in 2014. Solarpunk, for example, includes films like Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke, or literature like Starhawk's The Fifth Sacred Thing. Cyberpunk might be grim and depressing, exploring a world of unchecked corporate power, but Solarpunk rejects it entirely. It emphasizes collective living and the fulfillment of both nature and humanity in a mutually beneficial relationship. There's a full history of it linked below, but basically around 2008, a blog named Republic of the Bees published a post from steampunk to solarpunk, which conceptualized solarpunk as a literary genre inspired by steampunk. There were a few articles and works here and there, but it gained more steam, or should I say solar, with Miss Olivia Louise's Tumblr post in 2014, establishing some of the aesthetics of solarpunk. Quote, "A world in which children grow up being taught about building electronic tech, as well as food gardening and other skills. People have come back to appreciating artisans and craft people, from stonemasons and smithies to dressmakers and jewelers and everyone in between." Her post was later referenced by Adam Flynn in his Notes Towards Manifesto in late 2014. He describes the difficulty of being a futurist under 30, watching the world dive down the path of cyberpunk with the ever-present existential threat of climate change. Solarpunk to him is the only alternative to denial or despair. It rejects the individualistic, unsustainable approaches of some futurists who refuse to acknowledge the limits of energy on Earth. Solarpunk is about ingenuity, generativity, independence, and community. It's suffixed by punk because it opposes our existing world. It creates local resilience, authorities be damned, from rooftop solar to guerrilla gardening. Finally, a group called the Solarpunk Community published Un Manifiesto Solarpunk in 2019. It's a short article written in Spanish that basically reiterates some of the previous ideas albeit more succinctly. As for my relationship with Solarpunk, I've been into it for a pretty long time. I can't remember exactly where I first heard about it, but it was probably on Tumblr. It was also on Tumblr where I was introduced to the basics of revolutionary and progressive politics. Although Solarpunk never had a particular political ideology assigned to it, it's been embraced by liberatory ideologies of all flavors, from social ecologists to positive anarchists to green socialists. The philosophy of Solarpunk and the politics of anarchism are practically built for each other. Anarchism emphasizes personal freedom and collective liberation from hierarchies, authoritarianism, and exploitation. It seeks, as an ongoing project, common ownership, voluntary cooperation, horizontal organization, and mutual aid. Anarchism has generally been ahead of its time on many political issues, from queer to women's liberation, and its approach to ecology has been no different. Solarpunk can easily be synthesized with anarchism and many of its various strains, as it explores the possibilities of liberatory technology, localization of production, an end to destructive and wasteful consumption, and a reorientation of our relationship with society, work, nature, and ourselves. It all sounds pretty gooey and feel good, but I want to briefly address those that have lost hope in a better world. We're stuck thinking that this, largely, is the best that we can do. There's this idea in politics these days that imagination has no place in our quote-unquote pragmatic, no-nonsense world. Which is just false. Humans are flexible creatures capable of a whole range of social arrangement. If everyone limited themselves to the confines of what is, we wouldn't be where we are today. It's time to take some steps forward, with a variety of tactics in hand. One of which is art. Art has tremendous influence on us. Music, books, paintings, TV shows, movies, etc. They shape our ideas of what humanity is and what humanity can be. While there have been many major examples of solarpunk art and entertainment yet, I think we can change that. There are interesting stories to be explored and debates to be had through art. Imagine a novel that explores the different sides and dimensions, the debate on meat consumption in a solarpunk world. Or a comic that follows the community's journey as it seeks to rewild and resuscitate the surrounding ecology. Or, picture this. Maybe alongside a game that imagines a horrifying endgame that maintains capitalism, like Cyberpunk 2077, we imagine an uplifting, yet still challenging game that exercises our ability to balance the needs of our local ecosystem and deal with the difficult decisions and conflicts that arise as we reorient our place in the world. Could call it Solarpunk 2033 or something. There's a free idea right there. There's so many ways to incorporate solarpunk in your life and in your movements. It's pretty compatible with prefiguration, which I realize I need to create a video about because people still seem to have some weird assumptions about what I, as an anarchist, want to do. More to the point, solarpunk is truly something you could put into reality and practice and spread. Solarpunks can help create the future they want in various ways, from basic DIY living, to maker workshops, to creating and expanding eco-living and local autonomy in our towns and cities. Solarpunk is a key piece in a mosaic of possibilities that center human adaptability and the protection of nature, which our present world is organized to destroy, but our future world must prioritize. Solarpunk is a future with a human face and dirt behind its ears. Peace. Thank you for watching. For my patrons, I have a new post.
All right, there you go. That's his video, and they talked about that in there. We're not gonna watch that. All right, let's see what else we have here. I only have about 13 minutes left. How long is this? Okay, not too long. We'll go to this one next. Questions, comments, suggestions about the solarpunk concept. All right, welcome to the age of wireless electricity. Nikola Tesla's vision of the world is about to become a reality. Now, I've had some reservations about this idea, but let's go into this. Mostly comes down to inefficiency, because if you broadcast energy off at a, like a tower, just and it just goes out all over the place, that's very inefficient. The energy just goes everywhere instead of being focused into one place. And also the environmental impact of the electromagnetic fields going out there, affecting birds, affecting plants, potentially affecting insects as well. Yeah, I like the concept of it, but I think the ramifications of it are problematic. And that also points to today's world, where we've got radio signals going all over the place, which is going to be negatively impacting our environment as well. So this isn't just about this concept, but the radio, microwave-based sort of stuff in general, and the harm it may potentially cause on our environment as a whole is something we need to look at. Wireless electricity is the 100-year-old dream that just might turn into reality in the coming years. The advent of wireless charging, electric vehicles, 5G, and the need for greater sustainability have led to a push for the development of fully operational wireless transmission technology in different parts of the world. From America's Wave Inc. to Japan-based Space Power Technologies and New Zealand's energy startup Emrod, there are a number of companies that are currently working on wireless power transmission technology. Field tests have also begun for some systems, and it will be interesting to see who comes first in this race to offer an efficient, economical, and viable wireless electricity solution. All right, the history behind wireless power transmission. Before we get into the different revolutionary initiatives concerning wireless electricity, it is important to understand its origin and the underlying concept behind this technology that makes it a reliable choice for future power needs. Okay, in the year 1891, Serbian-American inventor Nikola Tesla designed the Tesla coil, a unique device that worked on the principle of electrical resonance and was able to transmit electricity without wires. However, the coil could conduct electricity wirelessly over short distances only, and due to its limited potential, it didn't turn out to be a practical application for wireless electricity transfer. Tesla was still obsessed with his idea of wireless power, so in the years that followed, he worked on building an energy station that could conduct high voltage wireless power transmission, WPT. Through this experimentation, Tesla aimed to transmit messages wirelessly at long distances, either as a series of strategically positioned towers or a system of suspended balloons. He constructed a wireless transmission station in Long Island called the Tesla or Wardenclyffe Tower, which he believed could demonstrate that long-range wireless electricity transmission was possible. Unfortunately, investor JP Morgan refused to provide more funds for his experiment, and the project was shut down in 1906 and later demolished. Nikola Tesla may have died in 1943 with his dream of wireless electricity unfinished, but in the past 100 years, a number of experiments and studies prove that the genius inventor may have been on the right track in his approach of using the earth instead of wires as a medium for transmitting wireless power. Okay, that's interesting. Today, various methods of wireless power transmission are being developed, and research is going on to implement these on a large scale. Solar satellite transmission. Okay, so this is power satellites, and we've talked about this before, I think. Let's make sure. Solar power satellites, we've talked about this before, and there's an amazing video about this on Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur. This is a promising method that involves the use of solar power satellites placed in high Earth orbit. The satellite would convert the sunlight into energy. This energy is composed of microwaves. These microwave signals would be transmitted to an antenna on the ground or to a main grid station. From there, the signals would be transferred to a base grid station, which would convert the microwaves into DC electricity. At the grid station, electricity would be converted into energy packets similar to internet data packets, which would be transmitted to individual homes and stored into an energy receiver. So yeah, you've got the satellites in space, you collect the solar energy, they beam it to the ground, bloop, and then that's turned into energy which can be used to power homes and stuff. Recently, Caltech has announced that board member Donald Brehm, who is also the owner of real estate investment firm Irvine Company, will donate $100 million for Caltech's space solar power project. This ambitious project aims to establish a satellite and microwave-based wireless energy network that could consistently supply power anywhere on Earth. Yeah, and this is, I like this concept. My only worry is, again, the environmental impact that it will have on as the microwaves are coming through the Earth. That's it. Microwave power transmission. All right, let's see what this does. In this method, microwave radiation is turned into DC electric power with the help of a microwave receiver and DC rectifier. The highest efficiency achieved with microwave power is 84%, which was recorded in 1975 by a team in Japan, but systems with higher power output have had lower efficiency. The next goal would be to achieve higher efficiency energy transfer over long distances. Research published in August 2021 at the University of Tsukuba, Japan, reveals that high-energy microwave radiation can act as an efficient wireless source of power for launching rockets into space. When a rocket is sent to space, fuel accounts for 90% of its weight. This load can be eliminated by the use of this microwave-based wireless energy technology. Yeah, and there's a way to do this with like a scramjet technology or something like that. I think that's the way it works. I couldn't remember. Yeah, but this is something big. Two very good ideas there. Laser transmission. The most efficient DC to laser converters have been shown to be solid-state laser diodes like those used commercially in fiber optic and free space laser communication. Laser transmission allows photovoltaic receiver to receive laser beams and generate electric power from the same. The merit of laser-based power transmission is that laser beams can be controlled more easily for long-range wireless electrical transmission. Yeah, so this is again, we're looking into space. This would be like a stellar laser. Again, you've got solar panels around the sun, specifically a Dyson swarm collecting energy and then collectively taking that energy, turning into laser and using that to power ships or sending electricity all across, the galaxy. Yes, stellar laser. Wireless power is no longer a dream for New Zealand. It's a pretty picture. Energy startup Emrod will soon test a prototype wireless energy infrastructure set up in New Zealand. If the test is successful, this would be a great push to the New Zealand government's plan for setting up wireless energy transmission throughout the country. Emrod has designed a unique tele-energy technology that uses a wireless network of antennas and rectifying antennas, carrying energy in the form of long-range electromagnetic waves from one point to the other. At first, electricity is conducted via antennas in the form of a non-ionizing beam having a frequency equivalent to radio waves. According to the company, low-power laser safety curtain ensures that the transmission beam immediately shuts down before any transient object, such as a bird or helicopter, can reach the main beam, ensuring it never touches anything except clean air. Okay, Enrod claims this technology is well suited to the mountainous terrain of New Zealand and can withstand varying weather conditions of the region. The Rectenna-based wireless electricity transfer technology is also considered a boon for areas where traditional power grids cannot be installed due to financial or geographical restrictions. While the project is backed by the New Zealand government, Emrod CEO Greg Kushner anticipates that people might oppose wireless electricity in the same way they are skeptical about 5G technology. He believes that the real challenge associated with this project is to assure people that wireless electricity from Emrod does not lead to any harmful radiation. Yep. Again, that's kind of one of my concerns as well. Emrod also has an office in Boston, and there's a strong possibility that the company's next wireless electricity project could take place in the US. Some other groundbreaking initiatives for wireless power transmission. Yeah, this is a fascinating way of getting energy between places. The new decade of the 21st century, demand for clean and limitless energy solutions, wireless electricity that stands as a great alternative to traditional power sources, has the potential to revolutionize the clean energy sector. This is also the reason there are so many interesting developments taking place in the WPP segment, wireless power transfer. Wireless Advanced Vehicle Electrification. Wave is an American technology company that manufactures wireless energy solutions for medium and high-powered electric vehicles. The charging systems provided by Wave can be installed underground, beneath the roads, or in parking areas and are able to deliver wireless power up to 1 megawatts. Yes, we're looking at inductive charging there. Recent reports suggest that Tesla's upcoming electric truck semi might use the inductive wireless charging technology from Wave to meet its power demands. Okay, cool. Beyond Earth is a nonprofit research institute that has proposed the vision for establishing a fully functional solar satellite power transmission system. The institute claims that the proposed wireless system could power industrial applications on Earth as well as human operations on the moon. Yeah, this is exactly the sort of amazing things that we need to look at. The proposed energy system would have two major units: a space solar satellite that will receive energy from the sun and process the same through its photovoltaics, concentrators, and wave power WPT subunits, and a rectangular receiver, which would transmit energy to Earth or Moon as per the requirement. The Institute recommends the completion of the proposed solar satellite-based wireless power system by the year 2030. Nice. The Indiana Department of Transportation has joined hands with Purdue University and German cement company Magment to test magnetic cement roads that could charge electric vehicles while they move on them. Okay, I've not heard of that. In the first phase, Purdue will conduct laboratory tests to confirm the viability of the proposed magnetized roads. Yeah, so there's a bunch of videos here you can take a look at. I have to add this to my policies. Once approved by the university, a 1,312-foot, 400-meter test highway would be constructed using the magnetic cement from Magment, and then on-road tests will be conducted with 200 kilowatt power trucks. If the tests turn out to be successful, the state will use the technology further to develop public roads. This Earth-based wireless charging project is a part of the Aspire initiative, advancing sustainability through power infrastructure for road electrification, backed by the National Science Foundation and many other public and private institutes. Whilstleblower, the US-based company, is also working on a park and charge technology that aims to charge electric vehicles via magnetic resonators while the vehicles are parked. Okay, there we go. All right. So, last minute questions, comments, suggestions. We've got through our 3 articles for today. There's a lot there referenced. So, yeah, I'll get all this stuff added to Discord, and you guys can check that stuff there. I have a lot of stuff here to read, too. So, all right, everyone. Thank you. Have a great week. We'll see you later.
Just me and you, let's make up all the rules. Count to 10 and watch the stars turn.